Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Jaya Girivaradari Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Jaya Girivaradari Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Jaya Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jai Shri Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Damodar Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bo Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Vivajakacharya Stottara Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Vivajakacharya Stottara Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Thakur Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, Chapter 5, Prahlad Maharaj, the saintly son of Hiranyakashipu. I think it's text number 30. Finally, we get to hear Prahlad Maharaj's glorious devotional philosophy, his perspective on the absolute truth. These verses are a series of great import. Well, actually, there's only a few here. Later, of course, after Lord Nrsingadev comes and annihilates Hiranyakashipu, then there's much more. Really, all of the verses spoken by Prahlad Maharaj are just brilliant in their philosophy and in their devotion. And here in this first of those, we're hearing Prahlad Maharaj speaking about persons who are gliding towards hell. Out of compassion, actually. His compassion is for those who don't hear about Krishna, Matir na Krishne. And he wants them to know that hearing and chanting about Krishna is the salvation from Adantagobir Vishatam Tamishram, gliding down towards hell. So there's a lot of import here. I should just read the verse instead of commenting now. Let's go through the formula first. So Canto 7, Chapter 5, text number 30 says, Shri Prarad Uvacha Matirna Krishne Paratas Vatova Mito Vibhadyeta Griha Vratanam Adantagobir Vishatam Tamishram Puna Punascharvita Charvananam Matirna Krishne Paratas Vatova Mito Vibhadyeta Griha Vratanam Adantagobir Vishatam Tamishram Puna Punascharvita Charvananam Matirna Krishne Parata Svatova Mito Biphadyeta Griha Vratanam Adantagobir Vishatam Tamishram Puna Punascharvita Charvananam. Would you like to recite the verse, Taraka Prabhu?
I would be delighted. Sri Parada Uvacha Patir Krishna Paratas Patova Mito Adhyeta Griha Vardhanam Adantagobir Vishatam Tamisram Puna Pranashcharvita Charvananam.
Thank you, Prabhu. This is an important verse, one that in our Brahmacharya ashram we like to learn. Let's hear the word-for-word translation says, Sri Prarada Huvacha, Prahlada Maharaj said, Matihi, inclination, na, never, Krishna, unto Lord Krishna. Parata, from the instructions of others, Svataha, from their own understanding, va, either, mitaha, from combined effort, abhipadyeta, is developed, griha vratanam, of persons too addicted to the materialistic bodily conception of life. Adanta, uncontrolled, gobhi, by the senses, vishatam, entering, tamisram, hellish life. Punaha, again, charvita, things already chewed, charvananam, who are chewing. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prahlad Maharaj replied. He's replying to his father. Imagine having the audacity to say this to any father, what to speak of. Your father is Hiranyakashipu, very powerful, very terrible, horrible person. And I'm sure Prahlad is already aware of Hiranyakashipu's tendency to kill his enemies. But to have the audacity, the courage to say this to his father in response to the question of, where did you learn this? Who are you learning this from? It's a lot of faith and conviction in the Lord. So Prahlad Maharaj replied, because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too addicted to materialistic life make progress toward hellish conditions and repeatedly chew that which has already been chewed. Their inclinations toward Krishna are never aroused, either by the instructions of others, by their own efforts, or by a combination of both. Purport. In this verse, the words Matir na Krishne refer to devotional service rendered to Krishna. So-called politicians, erudite scholars, and philosophers who read Bhagavad Gita try to twist some meaning from it to suit their material purposes, but their misunderstandings of Krishna will not yield them any profit. Because such politicians, philosophers, and scholars are interested in using Bhagavad Gita as a vehicle for adjusting things materially, for them, constant thought of Krishna or Krishna consciousness is impossible. Matir na Krishna. It would be nice if we had some politicians who were trying to twist the words of Bhagavad Gita in America. But here in Prabhupada, it's probably referring to Gandhi. That's just my speculation. Let's continue. The purport says, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktyamam abhijanati. Only through devotional service can one understand Krishna as he is. The so-called politicians and scholars think of Krishna as fictitious. The politician says that his Krishna is different from the Krishna depicted in Bhagavad Gita. Now I'm almost certain Prabhupada is speaking about Gandhi, whom he was quite critical of. Well, actually, Srila Prabhupada wrote letters to Gandhi, urging him to adopt the Bhagavad Gita as it is, and warning him that his twisting of the words of Bhagavad Gita for his political ends would have a bad result. And he advised Gandhi to basically stop politics and to just chant Hare Krishna. Very interesting letters you can read from the 1940s or 50s or something. I can't remember when Gandhi was murdered. Anyway, Gandhi would famously say that, I always thought that the Bhagavad Gita was really an analogy, and Krishna is your higher self and Arjuna is your lower self, and they're not really fighting. Of course, Gandhi was trying to promote his non-violent resistance against the British. So it's possible that Prabhupada is referring to Gandhi in this purport. Anyway, the so-called politicians and scholars, they think of Krishna as fictitious. The politician says that his Krishna is different from the Krishna depicted in Bhagavad Gita. Even though he accepts Krishna and Rama as the supreme, he thinks of Rama and Krishna as impersonal because he has no idea of service to Krishna. Thus his only business is puna punash charvita charvananam, chewing the chewed again and again. The aim of such politicians and academic scholars is to enjoy this material world with their bodily senses. Therefore, it is clearly stated here that those who are griha vrata, whose only aim is to live comfortably with the body in the material world, cannot understand Krishna. The two expressions griha vrata and charvita charvananam indicate that a materialistic person tries to enjoy sense gratification in different bodily forms, life after life, but is still unsatisfied. In the name of personalism, this ism or that ism, such persons always remain attached to the materialistic way of life. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Bhogaishvarya prasaktanam taya prahrita chetasam vyavasayatmika buddhi samadho na vidiyate. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. Those who are attached to material enjoyment cannot be fixed in devotional service to the Lord. They cannot understand Bhagavan, Krishna, or his instruction, Bhagavad Gita. Adanta gobir vishatam tamishram. Their path actually leads toward hellish life. As confirmed by Rishabhadev, Hat sevam dvara mahor vimukte. One must try to understand Krishna by serving a devotee. The word mahat refers to a devotee. Mahatmanas tumam parta daivim prakritim ashritaha bhajantyananya manaso gyatva bhutadim avyayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. A Mahatma is one who is constantly engaged in devotional service 24 hours a day. As explained in the following verses, unless one adheres to such a great personality, one cannot understand Krishna. Hiranyakashipu wanted to know where Prahlad had gotten his Krishna consciousness, who had taught him. Prahlad sarcastically replied. This is some interesting insight from Srila Prabhupada. Prahlad's reply is sarcastic. Prahlad sarcastically replied, "My dear father, persons like you never understand Krishna. One can understand Krishna only by serving a mahat, a great soul. Those who try to adjust material conditions are said to be chewing the chewed. No one has been able to adjust material conditions. But life after life, generation after generation, people try and repeatedly fail. Unless one is properly trained by a mahat, a mahatma, or unalloyed devotee of the Lord, there is no possibility of one's understanding Krishna and his devotional service." Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Milidam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scham Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vidam Dham Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So this is a very important verse, one that Srila Prabhupada would quote often, especially the last line, Puna Punascharvita Charvananam. Actually, I think Prabhupada quoted this, different parts of this verse all over the place. For each line has an interesting import, and there's so much for us to learn here in Prahlad Maharaj's sarcastic reply to his father. So there you go, a little sarcasm is sometimes appropriate. In which Prahlad says is really telling how someone can know Krishna by explaining how one cannot know Krishna. And it's not by anyone's personal endeavor, parataha or svataha or mitaha. Svataha, of course, by one's own understanding, one's own endeavor. One might sit down and try to understand what is God, what is Bhagavan. And as is described by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, I think, or maybe it was the purport of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that with one's own intelligence, one can understand Brahman. That's as far as one can go. Just by using reason alone, one can understand Brahman, or some sort of deism, if we're going to use a bit more of a Western terminology. And interestingly enough, many great philosophers, even atheistic philosophers, have done exactly that. Even some of the famous atheists of the world, like Christopher Hitchens, before death, admitted to a sort of deistic position, which was as far as he could go by reason alone. That there's some sort of absolute truth, which is likely non-material or some totality of all energy, whatever. So, svataha, by one's own effort, really, that's as far as one can speculate. But parataha, from the instructions of others, this is of course referring to the instructions of those who are not devotees. So there might be some council of scholars that come together, some universitas. Actually, that's the origin of the word universitas, from which we now use university, like Penn State University, is a sort of corporation of scholars. Obviously, it originates in old Roman and Greek culture, where scholars would come together with a sort of unified view of trying to understand some particular thing. So if one individual can only speculate so far, that means a group of individuals can only speculate the exact same distance in understanding, but they can pat each other on the back and agree with each other, and this way, Prahlad Maharaj's claim that parataha, from the instructions of others also, one cannot understand Krishna, or by a combined effort of the two. To understand Krishna is the result of Krishna's mercy, which he awards on his own sweet will to someone who wants to understand him, who engages in devotional service under the guidance of a Mahatma, a great devotee of the Lord. And this is very important. Anything else in this world can be understood with brute force. You can just figure out all the facts. Even with many people, sure, everyone can reserve their most intimate thoughts and feelings. But even still, you could figure out a lot just by brute force. That's why there's torture. Down in Guantanamo Bay or whatever. Every culture of the world has had their torture techniques. You can use brute force to figure out a lot, even about a person. In fact, you can probably get them to say anything you want. But Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, cannot be understood by brute force. This is what Prahlad is insinuating to his father. His father has how should we say, a record of brutality and force. And that's how he's accomplished many things in life. And so Prahlad, and speaking to his father, Hiranyakashipu, is instructing those of us who might think similarly. Maybe I can understand this world and understand God by brute force. After all, brute force is very effective in many spheres of life. Just look at the success of the colonialists, the imperialists, the institutions, the militaries. I mean, some would argue, some philosophers argue, at the end of the day, there is only brute force. Might makes right. That is the law of the jungle. That is the law of the universe. And some believe that that's also the definition of God. That whatever God brute forces upon everybody else, that is the highest truth. So it would make sense to many, this brute force philosophy for understanding God. But Prahlad is saying quite the opposite. Understanding Krishna is a result of Krishna's mercy. Bhaktyamam abhijananti. Right? Didn't Prabhupada quote that verse here? Bhaktyamam abhijananti yavanyaschasmi tattvataha. Krishna says, I can be understood only by devotional service. That's how one can enter into the mystery of my understanding. How important is this for us? We want to understand Krishna. We're trying to know Krishna, chanting Krishna's holy names. We're serving Krishna under the guidance of a devotee of the Lord, associating with the devotees, trying to associate with the devotees, be kind to all of the devotees. But we should know that Krishna reveals himself out of his own mercy, out of his own sweet will, and especially to encourage the devotees to engage in devotional service, to make the best of themselves, and to become pure in their intention and in their consciousness. That's Krishna's expertise in awakening pure love in his devotees. And so he knows how to give us enough, not so that we may covet or become complacent, but so that we become inspired in devotion. Just like Prahlad. Just consider the devotion of Prahlad. He really heard from his guru, Narada Muni, while in the womb of his mother. He didn't get much, you know? Here we are, you know, we're very, I can't speak for all of you, but for myself, I'm very spoiled. And I'm thinking, you know, Krishna should just come here and make my breakfast, and then I'll be really, really devoted. If Krishna would just come here and, you know, rub my shoulders a little bit, he should be coming here to placate me. And then I'll really be devoted, Krishna. But look at the example of Prahlad, who only heard a bit from his guru while he was still in the womb of his mother. And upon birth was immediately practicing Krishna consciousness, preaching Krishna consciousness. At the time of speaking this, he's not yet had darshan of Lord Nrsingadev, but still his conviction is so strong. His faith is so strong, his service, his preaching. He was inspired by the Lord within. So as I've always said, our condition is not different from Prahlad. Prahlad is not some superhuman mythological creature. Prahlad is a devotee, just like us. He's received the mercy of the spiritual master, just like us. The difference is that Prahlad Maharaj had no doubt in those instructions of his spiritual master. He had complete faith and conviction, applied it, and saw the results. He accomplished the mercy of Krishna. So Prahlad Maharaj's instructions are so valuable, so important to us. If we want to understand Krishna, we should simply act in a way that Krishna would want to see us, that Krishna would want to give us his mercy, to bestow the blessing of his darshan. So that's simple. It's not by the brute force, which is the habit of Hiranyakashipu, that one can understand Krishna. Matir na Krishne parata svataha va mitha. It's not by one's own effort, by the effort of others or combined effort of those two, that one can brute force Krishna, Nandalal Krishna, Shama Sundara Krishna, Radha Vallabha Krishna, to reveal himself. It's not possible. But one who receives the mercy of the Lord, one who receives the mercy of a dear devotee of the Lord, can understand Krishna very easily. Actually, Krishna says at the end of the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, right? He says, I can be easily understood. I'm going to find that verse. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. I can't remember where it is. I'm sorry, but there's one part in the Bhagavad Gita, maybe Taraka Prabhu remembers, where he says, one can easily understand me as I am. Anyway, so that's the purport of this first part of Prahlad Maharaj's statement here, one that Srila Prabhupada would quote often to remind us, let us not be like Hiranyakashipu and think that we can force an understanding of Krishna in this world just because we forced so many other things. We will not be successful in understanding Krishna by force. It is not possible. Receiving the mercy of the Lord is the only way. Prahlad Maharaj goes on to say that this is especially difficult for those who are griha vrata. Now, generally we understand griha to mean a home, like a grihasta, one who stands within the home. But griha can also refer to the home of this material world, one who avows themselves to the material world as their home. They've made as their vrata. This world is all there is. I'm going to make the most of it. I'm going to get weird with it. That's what the young kids say these days. I've only got a few years in this world. Let me get weird with it. And so I will try to enjoy with the senses. I will try to make some sort of position in this world, establish myself, really put my roots down in this material world and make the most of it. That's called griha vrata, right? And it sounds nice if you say it in certain context. I'm going to make the most of it. That means I'm going to give most of my attention, put most of my heart into this griha, this material world as my home. So making the most of the material world, it sounds sweet. Maybe some devotees will hear that if they're having Christmas dinner with family members who are more materialistic. They might hear, I'm going to make the most of it. It sounds nice, sounds cute. But that's griha vrata. And so, abhipadyeta griha vrata adantagopi. What is the progress? What is that they're going to get? What are they going to make the most of? Thinking themselves progressing in material life, they're actually progressing towards hell. I don't want to get too political here, but there is a section of society which is all about progressivism, progressiveness, progressivity. I don't know. Too early in the morning to figure out suffixes. But actually the progress being made is towards hellish existence. Adantago birvishatam tamishram. The more one tries to establish themselves as a home in this material world, actually the more they're gliding towards hell. But while gliding, one feels some sense of progress. I don't know if anyone's ever been skydiving or gliding. You feel like you're making a lot of progress. You're moving very fast. I went skydiving once in New Zealand, my pre-devotional days, just because I had this girlfriend who wanted to do it. And it was just the worst experience. I don't recommend jumping out of planes to anybody. It was terrible. But as soon as you jump out and that terminal velocity is hit, you really feel like, hey, I'm moving. I'm moving. I'm doing something. I'm going fast. I'm going places. Where's one going? Towards the ground. This is adanta gobir, vishatam tamisram. When the senses are uncontrolled, adanta gobir, one is actually gliding towards the ground, towards destruction. But it can have a feeling like there's some real progress being made here. We're doing things. We're making changes, you know? We're moving the society forward. Towards what? We have no idea. And Srila Prabhupada would often condemn this political and sociological ideology. Moving towards what? We have no idea. Again, I'm not getting into politics. There's certainly a lot of error on the conservative sides of human society, and there's a lot of error on the progressive side. But at least this this concept of moving forward just for the sake of moving forward is Vishatam Tamishram. Where are we going? I don't know. What is the ultimate goal? Who knows? But let's just change everything all the time. We call it progressive. So Srila Prabhupada, from what I've understood, he would sometimes condemn this attitude of a politics and sociology which has no end goal, which has no goal in mind. So it's just Vishatam Tamishram, and that we can see all the time. More and more, a hellish life is manifesting even in this middle planetary system. That stuff is supposed to be happening in lower planetary systems. The sort of horrible, horrible, hellish things that define the lower planetary systems. Now it can spill out even here into the middle planetary systems. There can be a mix. And so we see all sorts of terrible abuses, terrible crimes against humanity and against dignity, just really horrible, horrible things happening. This is Vishatam Tamisram, gliding towards hell. So usually we don't like this sort of language in Krishna consciousness. We like the sweet stuff. We leave the fire and brimstone to some of the other devotees of the Lord of different religious traditions. Although today, hopefully, they're celebrating a bit more of sweetness in their religion, celebrating the birth of Jesus. But, the fire and brimstone and the hellish stuff, that's more the interest of some other traditions. We like Radha and Krishna singing and dancing in Goloka Vrindavan with all of their associates. But we have to remember these statements as well. Srila Prabhupada did not shy away from such statements. That for those who are adanta gobhir, who cannot control their senses, adanta, danta means to control, like the rod, the danda, and go, of course, meaning the senses. If they cannot control their senses, then the only progress they're making is towards tamishram. Tamishram. I remember I've got a dear godbrother, Stamba Baba Prabhu, who's from England, and he would do lots of book distribution in England, and he told me once that he met some guy he was distributing a book to, he was trying to give this person some of Srila Prabhupada's books. And this guy said, this guy was saying, I believe in hell because, and he told what had happened to his cousin, the guy that Stamba Baba was talking to. It's a cousin or some friend or something, because there's these gangsters around London, and there, of course, they don't have as many guns like we do in America, and so they don't have the quick and easy drive-by shootings, which are popular with the gangsters in America. But gangsters in England or in London, they do a lot more brutal attacks on, I guess, competing gangs or something. And they have something called the, I can't remember, it's called like the Shelbyville Smile or something. That's some, referring to some district or neighborhood or whatever where some gangsters would practice this thing where they'd, I don't even know if I should tell you, Prabhu, it's actually, on second thought, it's just so horrible. What they would do to disfigure a person's face with knives and then rip their skin off. It's just really, really horrible things are possible. So this person was telling Stamba Baba, he said, I absolutely believe in hell because I can see what humans are doing to each other even now. This had happened to some friend of his who was involved in some gang. That it's very, very plausible that there's so many more horrible things that can be inflicted upon others in other places. And so this is very real to think about. Vishtatam tamishram, gliding towards hell. We can save people. We have the power. We have the power to save people from that destination. Prahlad Maharaj, out of compassion, out of consideration for those who are Maya Sukhaya Param Udvahato Vimudhan, who are always chasing after illusory happiness. Prahlad Maharaj had his compassion for them. He says, Sochetato Vimukacheta Sa Indriyarta. He says, I don't have any lamentation, I have no distress, but I only feel some sadness for those who take the senses as the most valuable thing, consider every sense gratification as the goal of life, indriya artha, who are therefore uncontrolled, adanta gobir, who are therefore gliding towards hell, visatam tamishram, chasing after illusory happiness, maya sukhaya, and are therefore very foolish, vimudha. Prahlad Maharaj says, I feel compassion. I'm simply concerned out of love for them. Therefore, even behind enemy lines, Prahlad Maharaj preaches. Even to his so-called teachers, Sandanamarka, he preaches the glories of Lord Krishna. Even to his demoniac, murderous father, he has the audacity to look him in the eyes and make statements like this, to preach to him, knowing that he can deliver others from visatam tamishram, from gliding towards hell, by preaching Krishna consciousness. Dear devotees, this is real. This is real. I've first-hand experience and second-hand witness of so many being saved from hellish life. If we preach confidently the glories of Lord Krishna, preach confidently about the potential transformation upon receiving the mercy of the Lord and his devotees. That's why Prahlad Maharaj is saying this. That's why Prahlad Maharaj says all these wonderful prayers, so that we can hear and benefit, so we can benefit others by repeating it to others, helping others to remember that the Supreme Lord is not any politician of this world, that the goal in life is not progress for the sake of progress, but to come to Krishna, to awaken, to arouse an attraction to Krishna. Mati Krishna. In every statement and every action, Prahlad Maharaj is demonstrating that for the benefit of all others. So we have that potential as well, believe it or not. You can't actually reach out into somebody's life and touch them in a way that makes them remember Krishna, to remember the Lord as the ultimate goal of their life, to dedicate themselves to the Lord as the ultimate goal of their life. Such dedication, even that one can control their mind and senses, and in this way not glide down towards hell, but to raise themselves up towards the lotus feet of Krishna. Otherwise, what is there to look forward to in this world? Dear devotees, what else is there to do? As my dear godbrother Ram Dass would always say at the end of his Bhagavatam classes, he says, well, it's hard, but there's nothing better to do. So he's repeating the sentiment expressed here by Prahlad Maharaj. Otherwise, puna punascharvita charvananam. There's nothing else to do than to preach Krishna consciousness and to inspire others to become Krishna conscious, to serve Sri Sri Radha Damodar with affection, with love and devotion. There is nothing else to do. We should have conviction in that by now. We should know clearly. It's just chewing that which has already been chewed again and again and again. And we know it. Sometimes we're still doing it. We have some habits, some attachments. Maybe just me. To doing the same things over and over again, thinking, well, maybe this time I'll get a little more flavor out of it. Prahlad Maharaj is saying, come on, Prabhus, puna punascharvita charvananam. What else is there to do? It's just the same thing over and over and over again. Thinking, well, this time I'll get a little more pleasure if I do it like this, or if I do it like that, or if I go to a different country and do it. then I'll really enjoy it. Sure, I've eaten many things and I've heard many things and I've seen many things, but if I do those things in a different country, there'll be a new lease on happiness. Now we must analyze according to the wise instructions of Prahlad Maharaj that all there is in this world is chewing that which has already been chewed, like taking some old wad of gum, finding it stuck under a table or on the ground somewhere and saying, there might be a little bit more rasa in this piece of gum. Let me try chewing it a little more. And as a piece of gum becomes old and exhausted, you have to chew even harder just to get something out of it. Requires more strength. So similarly, trying to hold on to this world and make ourselves a place in this world, griha vrata, requires increasing effort. And then the materialistic side of us, or explicitly materialistic persons, will justify their struggle because of that effort. Well, I'm doing this and I'm working hard. You are not working so hard, just chanting Hare Krishna. Just hearing and chanting about Krishna is a lazy life. Look at me. I'm working really hard. I'm struggling. This is how they justify chewing what has already been chewed because it takes increasing effort to get a little flavor out of it. I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Maybe some of us will hear from our family members during family season. I'm doing so much, as if the excess effort deserves some sort of award, as if it should be congratulated. How excessive your life is. This is puna punascharvita charvananam. So Prahlad Maharaj, in saying this to his father, having the courage to say this directly to his murderous father, is so that we can be benefited and to remember. Understanding Krishna is a result of Krishna's mercy. The mercy, through the conduit of his pure devotee, one can receive the mercy of the Lord and understand him as he is, easily, Krishna says. But by our own effort, by brute force, we cannot know Krishna. Thinking that we're making progress with senses uncontrolled, thinking that we're making progress in life, doing this and doing that, we're just gliding towards hellish life, hellish existence, animal life. We should know that there is nothing else to be done in this world except to hear and chant about the Lord, inspire others to hear and chant about the Lord. Everything else is just chewing what has already been chewed. Let us take heart. Let us not be forlorn. Of course, this is just a prelude to what will come later in the intense devotion, in the devotion between Prahlad and Lord Nrsingadev. We should know that these sort of verses, like this one spoken by Prahlad Maharaj, certainly sets the tone so that we can be prepared to really give all to hearing and chanting about Krishna. We should not make this the absolute, atantagobir vishatam tamishram, to make the fear of hell one's only infatuation, like some do. But we should know that this context is still very important for understanding the significance of receiving the mercy of the Lord and hearing and chanting about Krishna, making that the goal of one's life and inspiring others to do the same. So, Prahlad Maharaj's instructions are so wonderful, and I'm looking forward to hearing so much more in the coming verses and chapters. Hare Krishna consciousness, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, and Srila Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. I'll finish there. Thank you, dear devotees, for those who are tuning in. If there are any comments that some of the devotees would like to add, then please feel free to do so. Any thoughts or realizations, or if you really want to take a gamble, you could even ask a question. But if not, then let us go on with a wonderful day full of hearing and chanting about Krishna. And if you have to be with family today or in-laws, then I wish you the best of luck. And I would advise that better to be reserved in expressing your habits. That's my advice for those that have to visit family, and especially family that's not your own, like in-laws' families. Just smile and say, well, I just like chanting Hare Krishna because we have nice food. Sometimes that works a little bit better. And that way they'll have a favorable disposition towards Krishna. I mean, if you're as courageous as Prahlad Maharaj, you can just preach. But I don't know if we have that same Shakti. Hare Krishna. All right, I guess there's no questions or comments, so we'll finish. Thank you, dear
Why do
devotees.
you make that assumption?
Oh, Haribol, dear Tarika Prabhu.
I have nothing to offer. I'm just no. I'll say something. I'll try to. Let's see. Well, I want to thank you for a very nice class as always. The classes are always very nice. I like particularly the way that you have tied this into preaching, being compassionate towards the fallen conditioned souls. Very important. That, of course, is the mood of Lord Chaitanya, and it's a very special feature that we have the opportunity to take advantage of in Kali Yuga. The Sankirtan Ras is wonderful in a host of ways, as we hear from Lord Chaitanya himself in the Shikshamrita, that it's one of the wonderful things about it is that in the process of trying to help others, we also derive the benefit. Whether you are Krishna conscious or just beginning to cultivate Krishna consciousness, in the course of trying to give Krishna consciousness to others, your own Krishna consciousness increases. It expands. It's perpetuated, but it expands. It increases, and devotees frequently have the experience that in the course of speaking about Krishna consciousness to others, they find themselves saying things that they never had realized before that moment. That new realizations come as they are speaking, imparted directly into the heart by the Lord as they're speaking. So empowerment. But
It's true. It's mystical.
yeah, it's a wonderful thing. And I give the example that if you help someone to cross the road, you also wind up on the other side. So it works like that. It's a wonderful thing. So many glories of Sankirtan. Yeah, this particular verse, like so many, Srila Prabhupada quoted it extensively, and just for the heck of it, I'll mention that. Let me just review my thing here. 1 second here. Here we are. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada quotes this verse 13 times. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, he quotes it 3 times. In other books, small books, a total of 8 times. In lectures and other audio recordings of Srila Prabhupada, he mentions it 190 times. So what is that? It's a total of 214 mentions of this verse. So
Interesting, huh? Yes, Prabhupada definitely liked this verse. He understood it's very important.
yeah, he in explaining it, he would make reference to the chewing of sugarcane, which starts out very sweet, of course, It's very fibrous, almost woody, you could say. But when you finish chewing the sugar cane, you got nothing. It's just woody, fibrous pulp, and there's no question of getting anything more out of it. It's absolutely spent. Um,
Mm.
chewing gum. Some people just enjoy chewing, even if there's no taste there. But sugarcane without the sugar is it's just nothing. It's just work. It's horrible. Uh, so that was the example that he gave. Prahlad Maharaj is not specific about chewing any particular thing, but Srila Prabhupada would make reference to sugar cane. It's a good example.
I
Yeah,
guess Prabhupada didn't have access to bazooka gum in his youth, so he used sugarcane as a more relevant example.
yeah, I have memories of Srila Prabhupada. Oh, what the heck? We've got a few moments. I'll tell you a little story. It's an unfortunate event. Early in my, I think it's recorded in a few places, but I happen to have been there. It's in Mayapur, living under a banana tree at the time because um, Srila Prabhupada had thrown the devotees out of the mandir. At this point in time, there was just the one building, a lotus building, and Srila Prabhupada's hut was there from the beginning. But Srila Prabhupada threw everyone out, and he never let them back in. I think there are devotees living there now, but Srila Prabhupada, to my knowledge, never again gave permission for devotees to live in that building. Do you know why?
I have no idea, Prabhu. Please tell us.
It was because he was walking past the brahmachari rooms, um, and Srila Prabhupada walked all over the place all the time. But when he did, it it was often also an inspection. He was always looking at everything, checking things out, looking for problems, and correcting things constantly. And it was always on the devotees about this or that. He would always find the devotees were full of deficiencies, and he was always correcting them. So he passed by the brahmachari's rooms. One devotee had um, been chewing some sugar cane, and he disposed of the chewed sugar cane by just placing it on the floor outside the door to the room, along with an empty Limca bottle. And when Srila Prabhupada saw that, he he was I don't know, I'll say incensed. When Srila Prabhupada wanted to make a point, he could get extremely heavy, really, really heavy, in ways that would reduce grown men literally to tears. I could tell you many stories. I mean, a chastisement from Srila Prabhupada was very, very severe at times. Very high decibel and pounding of fists, and it it was scary, really scary. Anyway, he that bothered him so much that he threw everyone out of the mandir, and he never let anyone back in. They're never allowed to stay there again. Guests were allowed to stay, but the devotees were not allowed to stay in that building.
Hare Krishna. Well, good. I mean, ashram life should be very strict, very regimented. Sure, Prabhupada expected a high standard from the brahmacharis, especially. We should hope. My brahmachari experience was very similar. We were only allowed one or two mistakes before Gurudev would call and say it's time to go. So hopefully that tradition continues, starting with Srila Prabhupada. So you were living under banana tree, Prabhupada. I don't think you finished your original story.
Well, I was living on the banana tree because we weren't allowed to stay in the mandir, which was the only structure, for some some distance. So next best thing was, you know, this banana tree. At least I had some shade from the sun during the day. Later, we threw the Bengali workers out of the rooms along the front wall, and we moved into those rooms. There had been some Bengalis that were producing khadi cloth and doing some other work, and so they had the rooms that were built into the wall along the road. So we commandeered those rooms, and the Bengalis became homeless. And then later, the long building was constructed. That was so it was not completed for, let's see, its construction started around the time of the 76 Mayapur Festival. There was an excavation and work began, but there wasn't until 77 long building. Much of the structure was there. The ground floor at least was there. The second floor was not. There was a platform, but no structure above that. And so there were like tents constructed on top of that devotees stayed in during the festival. I remember when it was just an excavation, and one morning it was discovered that there was a cobra had fallen into the hole and couldn't get out, and the devotees discovered the snake, and everyone's freaking out. There was Sudama Maharaj was calling for one of the Bengali devotees frantically, and the snake was dispatched with large rocks. It was kind of, I don't know, it was distressing for me to witness. I was rather fond of snakes, but I didn't have experience of cobras and how much trouble they can be. I grew up around snakes that were predominantly non-venomous. But India, it's a real problem. It's a very serious problem. And later I had some serious run-ins with cobras. That's another story, longer story. We don't want to go there right now, but I once found myself in an ocean of large cobras. I mean, hundreds at least, if not thousands of them, in a mysterious temple of Lord Nrsimhadev in South India. This was in Andhra Pradesh, not so far from Hyderabad. Extraordinary temple that we stumbled upon by accident while traveling by bullock cart. And we're traveling along a road in the middle of a vast open plain. You could see to the horizon in all directions, and there was absolutely nothing in every direction to the horizon, nothing. And then on the side of the road, there was an arch, and carved into the arch very ornately and painted beautifully were the 10 avatars of Lord Vishnu. So we understood, all right, that somewhere through this arch and down another road, we're going to encounter a Vishnu temple. So we traveled down that road. It was late morning, long travel. Sun was setting, and we're going along this road, and there's still nothing to be seen to the horizon in all directions. But gradually we noticed that the grade of the road was descending below the plain. Just, the roadway, however wide it was, I don't know, maybe 12 feet wide or something, it's starting to descend down into the earth. And so as the sun is getting low on the horizon, we're gradually surrounded by rock walls on all sides, deep canyon. And the road is winding through the rocks. And at some point, it opens up. The rocks open up, and we see this big, beautiful valley, indescribably beautiful. Big, beautiful, lush trees. There's date palms and coconut palms everywhere. Beautiful, crystal clear stream flowing through the middle. Waterfalls, flowers everywhere, beautiful green growing plants everywhere, and a few people milling around here and there. And to the left, there is a huge rock wall, over 100 feet high, and there is a gigantic cave, huge cave in this rock wall. And it's all decorated with marble. There are marble steps leading up to it and marble pillars. Wasn't until the next day when the sun rose we got a chance to find out what was there. So there's this beautiful temple of Lord Nrsimhadev, self-manifested deity, um, manifested in the stone inside this cave, said to be the site of Lord Nrsimhadev's recuperation after his fight with Hiranyakashipu. He bathed himself in the stream there, and then he relaxed in this cave. And to this day, there is a self-manifested deity of the Lord there, which they have dressed in golden armor, beautiful golden armor, wonderful Sri Vaishnava Brahmins taking care of this deity. And they were having Bhagavatam class. We went to visit the temple. They offered them some boga that we had acquired. And we sat down for Bhagavatam class, couldn't understand what they were saying, but we kept hearing the head Brahmin kept saying words that we were able to understand. He kept mentioning ISKCON and Srila Prabhupada.
Hmm.
And we noticed that the book that he was speaking from was a Hindi translation of Srila Prabhupada's first canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. Anyway, he was glorifying Srila Prabhupada for spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. And here were these Westerners in Vaishnav attire traveling around South India in the middle of nowhere, chanting Hare Krishna. This was astounding to these Brahmins. They were absolutely blown away by the fact that we showed up at their temple, where no one ever shows up. No one knows that this temple exists. There's the famous 9 temples of Lord Nrsimhadev in Ahovalam, and this, by the way, is right in the vicinity of Ahovalam, but nobody knows it's there. I tried to find it again, could not find it. I did years of research trying to find out something about this temple. Cannot find out anything about it. Nobody has ever heard of it. Nobody knows about it. There's nothing written anywhere. But it's this big, gorgeous temple. Fantastic place in this absolute paradise. Anyway, first night we're there. I cook for the devotees. I pick up all the pots. We parked our ox carts on top of a hill. So I walked down the hill to the stream where there's a sandy beach, and I'm going to wash the pots. So I'm carrying a kerosene lantern and a bunch of pots piled up in front of me. I've got them all stacked one inside the other, and or on top of one another, and balanced carefully. So I get down to the stream, And as I start to bend down to put the pots down, I look in front of me and I see, literally now, I'm not exaggerating. I just, it was like, it was like a Hollywood movie. You would not believe this. I see thousands upon thousands of glowing eyes staring at me from the the stream and the opposite side of the stream. There's just thousands of eyes everywhere. I wasn't sure what it was at first. At first, I was thinking, all right, they're frogs. Some large frogs are in the water and here and there. So I put the pots down, and I'm juggling the pots and this lantern, and I look at the stream where some of the eyeballs are quite close to me, and I realize, oh my God, it's snakes. They are snakes. And I look closely, and they're not just snakes. They've got big hoods on them. These are cobras. And they're not little cobras. They're, minimum 5 foot length cobras. And I thought, okay, perhaps this is not the best time to wash the pots. And I start to turn to the side, thinking, I'm going to head back to the ox carts, and I don't think I'm going to sleep on the ground tonight. And as I turn my head, I look, and I turn with the lantern. As the lantern turns, I see that the eyeballs are not just in the stream and on the opposite side of the stream. They're right in front of the stream. They're to the side of me. They're on the other side of me. I turn around. They are behind me. They are everywhere. Somehow or other, I walked a distance of about 100 yards through an ocean of cobras, and somehow I did not step on one, and I did not get bitten by one. It was not a small miracle, let me tell you. If you saw this, you I can't describe it in terms that you would believe. It was like an Indiana Jones movie, a pit full of snakes. Unbelievable. Thousands upon thousands of them. They're all on top of one another. There is not enough room on the ground to stick a pin into without stabbing a snake. They're everywhere. Just the ground is covered with thousands of cobras, and they're all just laying there staring at me. Never blink an eye. They have no eyelids. But they just, you had to be there. Let me tell you, I thought about this. I'm not afraid of snakes in general, but so I had to tell myself, look, you need to understand these are not ordinary snakes. These are not the snakes you used to keep as pets. These snakes are deadly. Any one of them, one bite, and you're a goner. There's no medical facilities for God knows how many miles. You're in the middle of nowhere. It would take a day or two of travel to get back to civilization. It's hopeless. You're not going to be able to get medical attention if you get bitten. You're going to die. And so what to do? I'm praying to Lord Nishimadev, who's several hundred yards further away from me. I didn't even know that he was there. Didn't know who the temple was for, but um, so I'm surrounded by snakes, and I didn't know how to how to get out of the situation. What I had to do was the lantern had a long handle on it. It's just like a wire hoop, and long enough that I could put the lantern down close to the ground and use the bottom of the lantern to nudge the head of a snake out of the way enough so that and they'd be blinded by the light right in front of them and they wouldn't see me. So I'd use the lantern to nudge them, side to side, and clear a pathway for myself so that I could gradually work my way back. And it took me hours of moving inches at a time, slowly moving these snakes out of the way, trying to get back to the rest of the devotees. Um, not as I say, not a, this was miraculous, absolutely miraculous that I survived this. How I got down to the stream, literally wading through an ocean of cobras without getting bitten is unbelievable. It's impossible. It's impossible. They were wall to wall. Turns out there was a huge population of frogs in this stream, and these snakes would all congregate there to eat the frogs. So they were all, fat and well fed. These were big, healthy snakes. But I've never in my life have I seen so many snakes except in an Indiana Jones movie. Um, it just never happens anywhere. Completely unnatural. But I I don't know how to explain. I am not exaggerating. I'm not exaggerating. There were thousands upon thousands of cobras everywhere. And somehow or other, I wound up in the middle of them. And somehow I got out alive. I did not get bitten. I was never bothered by them. And I take that to be directly the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nrsimhadev on poor little scrawny brahmachari Tarikadas. Um, anyway, we got a
Hare
million,
Krishna.
got a million India stories. If you get me started, I can't stop. There's no off switch. I'll shut up now.
No, it's a wonderful story, Prabhu, because it reminds us of Prahlad Maharaj also protected from venomous snakes and serpents. And so I think you must be very dear to the Lord that he's protected you in this way.
That was before I became a major operati.
I don't know about that. Thank you, Prabhu. I hope that someday you'll write down all these stories so they
It's
can
in the
live
works.
in perpetuity. Yeah?
In the works. We're starting with the Prabhupada memories.
Hmm.
Um, I'm under substantial pressure to get that done. So
Yes.
it's slowly coming together.
Thank you, Prabhu, for
Hare Krishna.
showing us what it was like. You must have real insight into Prahlad's torture by his father, since you've experienced being surrounded by venomous serpents, but being protected by the Lord as well. Must be very real for you. So we appreciate the story. Thank you so much. However, it is 8:20 and there are some things to do today, so I think we should wrap up the ecstatic Krishna Katha going on. Thank you, dear devotees, for tuning in. Everyone have a glorious day full of Krishna consciousness. And I hope to see some of the devotees later. I'm going to come down to Yashoda Mai's Christmas party. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.